Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monty Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Welcome to What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, family, and business. We're going to have a fantastic show today. It's an honor to have our guest with us. I'm Monty Wyatt.
I'm Paul Szynski.
And Paul, if you would, introduce our guest today.
Man, we got a great guest today, folks. The gentleman we have here today is going to educate us on the biofuels. And he, from the state of Iowa, graduate of Dowling High School. His father, a lot of people out there probably know him, Terry Branstad, longest serving not only in the state of Iowa as a governor, but also in the United States. He went on to be the ambassador in China under the Trump administration, and he's always had great relationships with China. But we have here his son, Eric Branstad, and I want to welcome Eric here. Thanks for coming and joining us for this podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
And we're really excited about the biofuels. I think that's something a lot of people out there don't quite understand how that works. But we're going to talk about that, Monty.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about a number of things today, and I'm looking forward to it. We always like to start our shows with a topic, and I know with all of your experience, this topic should fit very well. Our topic for our achiever out there, our audience is called The Achiever, and our topic is influencing influencers. And, Paul, when I say that phrase, influencing influencers, what comes to mind to you, and what does that look like for you?
Well, it looks like where you have a group of leaders that have an influence not only on the general population, but when you get a combined group of leaders together, it's what you call people that influence the leaders. And we have one here today. He's been a leader in the state of Iowa and actually around the world, and served on the Trump administration, but he's been definitely an influencer among influencers.
Absolutely. Eric, how about you? When you think of that phrase, influencing influencers, what does that mean to you, and what's that look like to you?
Actually, it sounds really cool. It makes me look really big. In reality, it's, I've been very fortunate to, have grown up alongside and watching my dad and his success. And I have, through college and through all of the work that I've done, since I got my first campaign was the Bush campaign in 2004, and Bush had lost Iowa in 2000, and I was bound and determined to never be undefeated like my dad and never lose a campaign. And I was confident that we could win Iowa. We had lost Iowa by 2,144 votes in 2000, and we weren't going to do that again. And we ended up winning Iowa in 2004 by 10,000 votes.
Oh, wow.
So I'm undefeated in presidential politics now 3 times.
I love it. I love it. Influencing influencers, it's about knowledge, it's about education, it's about guiding people down to understand information. And just hearing some of your stories before we got on the show here, you help people see things by educating. And so, I want to hear what's the biggest trait that you would say an influencer has?
I think, first, my dad taught me a lesson when I was really young, and that is to never burn any bridges. And your friends, your enemies today might be your friends tomorrow. So it's always important to be able to, act at a level and respect at a level of which you can always, you're not making enemies. You always want to act appropriately, and you want to be disciplined, and you don't want to do anything certainly to hurt feelings or cause grudges.
I love that. You kind of phrased it earlier. You're playing the long game, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You got to have that relationship.
And politics, trust me, in 10 years, it's a completely different game. In 1 year, it's a completely different game. And as I was describing earlier, if this was, the way we're talking about the the top presidential prospects of the next cycle. If we rewound to 8 years ago right now, we would be talking about Scott Walker being president, guaranteed being president, and we would be putting all of our money on Scott Walker to be president. So it's always important to recognize, too, that things change very quickly, and you never know at the end of the day what's going to be happening tomorrow. And so you've got to build the relationships, keep the relationships, and show respect, most importantly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to have you start with your story. I know your father was in politics. How did you get into the politics? How did you get into the scene?
So actually, my friend John Pence, who's representative from Indiana, Pence's son, Vice President Pence's nephew, we always talk about being SOBs. It's not what it means, not what it sounds like, which means son of a boss, or always kind of being in the shadow of a father or family member that's been extremely successful, and also dealing with that personally, and then working with that. So growing up in politics, I wanted nothing to do with politics. Mm-hmm. In fact, I wanted to be far away. So when I was at Rockhurst University, I was a communications. I wanted to be I actually wanted to be a journalist. That's what I wanted to be then.
Oh, wow. So what turned the corner? You didn't want to be in politics.
So I didn't want to be in politics at the time. I wanted to be a journalist. So I did a college internship for Talk Radio News Service in Washington, D.C. in '98. And a month after I got there, guess what happened? The Monica Lewinsky scandal. And all of a sudden, my little talk radio news outfit was now Washington correspondents to places all over the world asking what's going on. And it was a really wild time to be there. And I really earned my chops real quick, kind of being tossed into a really heavy journalism environment. And I was there. I ended up staying past my internship and working through the summer and through the impeachment process through the fall. So it was certainly a learning experience, and getting able to live in D.C. And experience D.C., which I'd never done before. It was an amazing opportunity at just the right time in my life. And that kind of got me also focused on where my cares were politically. And I was able to finally kind of become a political myself, not just in my dad's shadow, but be able to do my own thing and work hard.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Paul, our guest Eric has been around in a number of different scenarios. Tell us a little bit about your relationships during the Trump administration and how you influenced during that time, whether it's during the administration or even during the election time frame. Because again, influencing the influencers.
Well, it was fantastic because for the general campaign in 2016, I got to be the state director in Iowa, and I got to do a lot of work in Wisconsin too. And and then coming off of a big, surprise win, if you were asked to go, I always knew we were going to win, but the rest of the country and certainly the national media didn't think we were going to win. In fact, going into headquarters on election day in 2016, if you're watching any news station, and I'm having a meeting with my staff, if you're watching any news station, they have every map on how bad we were going to lose. Every single map said how bad we were going to lose. And I had to tell my staff, we're not going to lose. And they're like, well, Eric, we might lose. Everyone's saying we're going to lose. But the reality is that we worked really hard and that we made it happen. And so when we had an amazing election night, it was almost unbelievable. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, I'm heading to Washington, D.C. to lead the inaugural. And my position was to lead all of the governors who were coming to the inaugural. I was in charge of all the governors, which is when you're dealing with securities and hotels and events and tickets and all that stuff. That's a very big job and big staffs. And you got to figure out who's coming and when they're coming and how they're getting to each of these places, because Washington, D.C. literally closes down during the inaugural.
Yeah, what a responsibility to have at that time. But obviously, you had the credentials and relationships.
I had to get it done, and as my wife has taught me always, and we teach our kids, it's about problem solving skills. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what life is about. Is your day, your hour, your minutes are sometimes filled with problems, and it's just how you deal with them and how you're able to respond to them and hopefully fix them.
Yeah, you grew up with a great family, a good foundation there. Now, obviously, I think a lot of people want to know is what was it like to work day to day with President Donald Trump? I mean, how was that?
So, the mainstream media, and it seems everyone else tries to turn him into a monster, and he couldn't be more of the opposite. As I was telling you guys before, he remembers every conversation we've ever had. And that takes a special talent, and that takes a special person in order to do that. It does. And I saw a movement in 2016 I had never seen in a lifetime of politics. I had never seen a movement of people, many of which had never been involved in politics. As an example, here in Iowa, Iowa was always Eastern Iowa was the Democrat working class part of the state. Central Iowa was kind of the middle, and really 50-50, and Western Iowa was always the conservative Republican side. Now, Eastern Bloc and Western Bloc are both conservative. And it was Donald Trump that did that in 2016, where he had a message for the working class people of Iowa and our working men and women across the state. And that message was, I'm here for you. I'm listening to you. And I want to make America first again. And that resonated. And it's certainly, put us on the momentum and to where, we won and we were able to accomplish things in his term that I didn't think we could accomplish, and certainly in the time that we were able to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think people were ready for change, and
they got it.
They got it. Donald Trump showed us change.
They got it.
They did. We're going to circle back to that at the end of our podcast, but let's talk a little bit about right now. I know your mission right now is to educate people in the biofuels. And a lot of people, it's kind of in my opinion, I think it's a great thing for agriculture. But I think a lot of people are uneducated. They don't know exactly how it works and what the benefits. So I think we'd love to hear it from you. I think there's not anybody that knows it better than you. And you're working with, I think, ethanol producers all over the Midwest. So if you could kind of give us
So actually, to give you even a little more background than I have, in 2012, I ran Iowans Fueled with Pride, which was a very small project for the Iowa Renewable Fuels Association. And that was really focused on getting out there and talking to all of the Republican candidates at the time about how important ethanol and biofuels are to Iowa, how the industry has developed, the efficiencies, value-added agriculture, all those things in one. I did in 2012 on a very small budget, and I had just opened up my own firm, and it was just me going out and doing these things. So putting the miles on the car and traveling the state. And the day after the caucus in 2012, the Des Moines Register front page was, ethanol wins the Iowa caucus. So whatever I did was right. And then I took that article and I saved that article when the industry came back to me in 2015 and said, we want to look at doing something like this again, teaching all of the presidential candidates. And that caucus was both Republicans and Democrats. And I made a commitment to educate and talk to everybody, no biases, we just wanted to teach everybody about value-added agriculture. And when I say value-added agriculture, what I was teaching these presidential candidates is when we take a bushel, or we farm a bushel out of our fields, we take that kernel from that cob and we put that into an ethanol plant. Now it comes out, instead of just feeding it to a cow and there it goes, now we feed it into the ethanol plant and it comes out 8 different products. It comes out in the Gatorade that I drank at tennis this morning. That was from the ADM plant in Clinton, Iowa, from the corn syrup from that plant. The DDGs are now pelletized and, given as high protein feed for all of livestock. We're making fuel. We're making other petroleums and plastics and all kinds of stuff out of this one single kernel. And if it were to if we were to feed it to the pig, then that's it. It's gone. Mm-hmm. And so value-added agriculture, it's important to teach what that is and what that looks like now. And as fortunately, we were extremely successful in 2012, especially successful in 2016. And and we're in a different world and different environment than certainly then now. Where we're much more in electric cars, and it's not the oil versus biofuels war that has been going on for the last 2 decades. And we've got, ethanol is high octane, and we are now making jet fuel out of ethanol, and our future is really, really bright. And that's exactly what I want to show and teach all of these candidates.
Well, I think also, Eric, to kick any business or fuel like this, it takes a little bit of government support to get it kicked off. And I think a lot of people out there ask, there's also a tipping point where you get over that.
Right.
And I think that's where you're working towards. But you still get some support from the government.
We got subsidies, I think, up through 2012, and those ended. Don't quote me on that exact year, but I'm pretty accurate that that's 2012. Subsidies stopped, and then the RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard, the mandate, and I don't like to use that word, but has influenced or has helped the industry grow and become, the market force that it is. Mm-hmm. And now I think with it's the oxygenate for the fuel. It's the high octane because, I drive a car where I have to use premium gasoline or a 91 octane minimum. There's other cars where you need a 93 octane minimum these days. Mm-hmm. And so with how we are tuning engines in order to not have to use cylinders and gas, now we're able to tune these engines and utilize those turbos and utilize that to where we don't have to use that much gas. And it's only getting better and better each day.
So the ethanol, let's talk about this a little bit. Okay. The main thing that we have is carbon. Mm-hmm. That's a bad thing. We want to try to get that under control. And when it's kind of give the bad things about carbon, and then what can we do with it?
Yeah. So this is where we come into the carbon sequestration. I wrote an op-ed for Dad when we were first talking about this, and I didn't want to use the word pipeline because it just the bad connotation. When you think pipeline, you think crude oil just spilling out over everything. Right. It's a tube. Okay, I like to call it a carbon tube. But so what we're talking about here is these ethanol plants, fertilizer plants, any heavy emitter of carbon into the atmosphere. What we're going to be doing with that carbon that has been going into the air, we're going to be taking, instead of it going into the air, liquefying that and putting it in the carbon tube and sending that to the caves deep 2 miles beneath the surface in North Dakota, where that can be safely sequestered and stored until we need to use it again. And I have been told from my friends in the industry, and I'm curious what other scientists are out there, we're looking at 10 to 20 years of being able to use those molecules that we're storing down there that's waste currently. We're going to be able to heat our homes or do all kinds of things with those and recycle those again.
Okay. Help me visualize, Eric.
Yeah.
The carbon. I'm taking the carbon from the ethanol.
So
where are we taking this carbon?
So let's actually start from the beginning.
Yeah,
so as we're growing the corn,
right.
The corn is using the carbon as fuel to grow. Mm-hmm. Then when we harvest and we put that corn into an ethanol plant, and it is created, and then that kernel and those kernels, those cobs are created into 8 different products, of which all of the waste to make all of those 8 products that would have gone into the atmosphere instead of going into the atmosphere, they are being liquefied and they're put in a tube and safely sequestered so that they're not going into our atmosphere. They're not hurting the environment. And I'm confident that we're going to be able to use that carbon in a short amount of time to be able to use it again. Therefore, when you take the whole cycle of this one kernel from that corn, that one kernel is going to be carbon negative now.
So it's taking the waste from these manufacturing facilities
Right.
and turning it into a liquid form.
Correct.
So we can transport it and use it in the future.
Absolutely.
So when we harvest it, we take it to the elevator, we go to the ethanol plant gathers this carbon, and then you store it in the caves.
And really any heavy emitter. So whether it is fertilizer plants are also on part of this list, but any big manufacturing, chemical plants, any heavy carbon emitter, and there's a lot of them. This could be our way to be able to get our carbon out of the atmosphere, and it's a win-win for everybody, and especially the earth, and especially the farmer.
What's the biggest challenge that you're facing in trying to educate and teach people this concept?
Like I said, they hear the word pipeline and like everybody gets crazy. And, I think really just like what we've been talking about, it's about educating. It's about talking to folks and it's showing folks how important this is, to both the environment, to business, to the future of fuel, to the future of corn, all kinds of levels.
So how have you had to change your positioning or even change your mindset to help influence others? Because sometimes you get big opposition, and so how have you helped overcome
that's where I always say politics is a part of everything. As much as we try to keep politics out of everything, it really also is a part of everything. So you've got certainly with the carbon sequestration, the mission is to meet our particular goals we've got goals by 2030, we've got goals by 2035 and on. And so in order to meet these goals, this is a technology that we currently have that's currently being utilized. And we've got a lot of great investment going on through the Midwest and from several different companies and several different projects that are working really hard to make this happen. And it's got a bright future, and it's especially good for the ethanol plants of today. And any other heavy emitter, they're never going to be able to meet these carbon standards. And so this sequestration is a way to be able to continue to do the things that we need, but make things safe for the environment as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is educating the people, because people look at, it's set up a subsidy with the government, but a lot of people don't realize is what it's doing for our environment, what it's doing for our energy. There's a lot of different opportunities with this, and you got some wonderful people behind you that are starting to invest into this space. And I think if somebody wanted to get more knowledge or have an opportunity to invest in this space, do you know a place where they could go, Eric?
Well, certainly I have always depended on Iowa Corn. I mean, they've got Craig Floss and Mindy Polberg and their entire team at Iowa Corn has been doing this for a long time, and I know how much they care about Iowa farmers, and I know how hard they work for Iowa farmers. And so we're working with everybody, but they're a great resource as far as to get to know this. But what I have found, my mission with all of the presidential candidates, for this coming cycle, is to get them. I want to take them to a plant. I want to take every single one of them to a plant, and I want to show them exactly what this is. I've done it with President Trump. We went to the Gowrie plant outside of Fort Dodge, or just south of Fort Dodge, back in 2015. And I remember being in there, and he had just gotten Secret Service at the time. He had surpassed whatever requires Secret Service. So we're on this ethanol plant at a Poet plant in Gary, Iowa, and we're ready to go on the tour. And the Secret Service is like, no, we're not going on the tour. And President Trump's like, oh, we're going on the tour. He's like, I'll be okay. We're going on the tour. But that, actually almost all of the candidates, except for Ted Cruz, got to an ethanol plant this last cycle, or in 2015 and 16. And what's most important is just getting, instead of like washing, part of the problem that we have too with a lot of presidential candidates is just all of the DC lobbying and all of the politics going on there. When they actually get out and meet and talk to the farmers, and they actually get out and visit the plant and talk to the people that work the plant and really see how this is done and what we do, it sells itself. It really does.
Yeah. Anytime you get carbon out of the air.
Yeah.
Now, when you get this carbon, is there like you get 80% of it, or is there a percentage amount that they get?
I don't. I'm not the scientist to ask on this, but it truly is as far as technologies to get towards any kind of goals that we want to get to and meet, even without shutting off electronics and gas powered and every other thing possible. This is the way to do that, and I'm really excited that it's in the Midwest. I'm really excited that I was a part of it, and I really see this as far as being for the entire country, looking at the future for the country and how we make how America leads again, like we are. For the rest of the world.
Yes, I think so too. I think it's a wonderful way of, and Iowa's leading the way, and it helps everybody all over the United States.
And I, when we're talking about, when some folks, some of the environment folks talk to me about, is America doing enough? What more can we do? At the end of the day, if China and India do nothing, it doesn't matter. I mean, so we really have to be the leaders in this. And this is, I think, a valuable technology and an amazing industry, what we're about to see happen.
I want to talk to our audience, the achiever, here for just a second.
Yes.
Listening to all of the exciting things that you're part of. What are a couple skills that you think influencers need to have? If we're to influence influencers out there, what are the top 2 skills that someone needs to possess?
Discipline, number one. I'm one that I get up early. I work out every morning at 5:30. I just am old school like that, where that's what works for me. We all have to find out what we each need, but that for me too gives me time. Having a big family, I've got 4 daughters, and 2 dogs and 2 cats. So it's very important for me to start out with that kind of discipline in all parts of my life. But and then past that, I think networking is cliche, I think the term is cliche, but I think really building relationships, especially in what you care about. And I would say too, my professors and my friends always told me, you want to invest in the things that you buy and that you care about and the things that matter to you. I think in the same realm, you want to get into things, if it's in your interests or your business or your hobbies, you want to really, go after it. And so instead of networking, I would call it more, going towards what you're after and really learning and getting to know the people and the professionals, and whether it's going to the conferences, once you get involved in the orbit, you grow with that.
Absolutely. I love that language of building relationships and investing in what matters to you. That's excellent. So I want to challenge our listener, the achiever, to do that. Have great discipline, personal discipline, and build relationships. Invest in the things that you love and you care about. Now, how do you balance your family? You got 4 daughters, you got 2 dogs, 2 cats.
I don't want to show you my text from my wife right now on the kind of trouble I'm in there. So I'm probably not going to ask. No, it's like any especially with a young family, but any young professional too. Yeah. It's balance is difficult, and I have to try to work on my balance every single day, making sure that my business and my family and my health and all of these things. If one of those goes out of balance, then at the end of the day, they all do.
Right.
And then that balance is off. Yes. So it's really finding that balance each and every day, to prioritize and divide the time so that you're most valuable, and especially to the people who depend on you.
I love that. I love that.
That's great. Relationships, there's no doubt about it. Building relationships is key to your future.
I was in a meeting this morning, and they were talking about my dad and President Xi, and that relationship started in 1985, and that was because he was staying at his friend's farm in Muscatine, Iowa. I mean, we had no idea who he would be or what he would become. But when you treat everyone with respect, when you really do care about everyone's best interest, and you're able to build relationships like that, I mean, you never know. Someday it might be the president of China, and you might be the governor, you might be the ambassador. Who knows?
Yeah,
it's a really small world like that.
Perfect example of an influencer influencing influencers. His dad, Governor Terry Branstad, ambassador to China, builds a relationship 1985, and currently probably one of the only Americans that really has any contact with that president of China. And I can say this personally, I'm thankful that relationship's there, because we need those types of relationships building. And that's what you call an influencer.
Absolutely.
And what a great job to you, your family, and the Branstad and Terry, and I'm sure your dad's proud of you and all the work you've done.
Well, and what was really fun in 2016 was, I guess, going back to my SOB days, like I was always like, like wanting to do that. And then actually, being able to campaign and do this alongside my dad was a ton of fun, and certainly has made us, closer than ever by far.
Yeah. That's wonderful, because we're all about health, family, and business. And you're a perfect example of that, the whole Branstad family. But now another question everybody wants to know. So President Trump's going to run again. Mm-hmm. And how do you see that?
I'm always his biggest fan, and and I have so proud to have worked with him and for the administration, and we were able to accomplish, I think, the most amazing things of all time. I am excited for him to run again. I was at his announcement at Mar-a-Lago in November. I talk to him often on the phone. I'm going to be doing the biofuels, thing, for at least through the caucus cycle. And I've already talked to him about, wanting to do, and he depended on me, throughout his presidency. And I did several Oval Office meetings with Senator Grassley and Governor Reynolds, all on this biofuels front. And so I want to continue to be helpful and to him on that front. But yet I still need to talk to all of the other presidential candidates to teach them the same thing that I've taught President Trump, and exactly what it means to Iowa and how important Iowa is. And as you both know, Iowa's an amazing place, and we are very proud to live here and be from here. And it's the same thing that I want to do with the rest of the candidates. But
I think you're right.
It's going to be a wild ride. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be. We've got a whole year yet.
Yes, and we definitely need somebody in this biofuel space educating the public out there. And I think you're a good example of somebody that can do that. And we appreciate your work on that. I can tell you that from people from Iowa and Midwest.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Our title is "What's Your Ceiling?" And is there a ceiling that you're trying to break through right now? That something you have to learn, something you have to grow, that to get you through that to that next level?
I think the ceilings. I would say my initial ceiling was, and always kind of feeling like in my dad's shadow.
Sure.
I think having gotten past that was my first ceiling, certainly. And just, having always that in the back of my mind, type thing. And that, they only like me because of my dad, not because of
Right.
me or what I do or what I can bring to the table or my talents. And so that was my first ceiling. And now, it's really fun being able to mentor and teach my kids, but also the next generation of folks. I had a gentleman come into my office yesterday, and he works right near me, and I just saw him at an event a couple weeks ago, and he came in and he's like, Eric, I really want to work with you. Do you have any opportunity? I was like, well, I'm actually looking at a couple projects, hiring come. He's like, I will work for free. I just want to. So it's like when you start mentoring people and you start teaching folks, it's really nice when they start coming and asking you, and it feels really good.
Absolutely. That's great.
That's something that's important as the achiever out there, anybody out there, is to understand when you're around the right people, build the right relationships. Getting paid is really not the big part of it, because if you're around those type of people and what you can learn from them will help you get to that next ceiling and break those ceilings. And that's a good example. That young man that came to you to want to work for free, that's the type of guy that's going somewhere.
Exactly.
And he'll get paid double.
In a great example of what I gave before, if you want to do something and you know what you want to do, then you can,
Yes.
all you need is a little spirit and a little want, and you can get it.
Absolutely.
The American dream.
It is. It's the American dream. Get up in the morning, go make it happen. And it's there. That's right.
Just a couple more comments. We always like to ask every one of our guests what you want to be known for. Mm-hmm. So as you think about that, what do you want your kids to remember you by? What do you want to be known for in the world?
Well, that's a great question. That is a good one. I at the end of the day, I want to be. I just want to be someone they can depend on and that they can trust. I think at the end of the day, we all need that, and I want to be able, and certainly being the only. Not that you have to be the only man in the house. I'm not like sexist like that, but I want to be the rock, for my family, and I want to be. I want my kids and my wife to be able to feel confident and good that, the lights are on and there's a ride to school, and that, there's always someone there, for anything that they could ever need.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
Absolutely. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, Google. Matchpoint Strategies is my public relations firm. And we've got a website, www.matchpointstrategies.com. And then, if you go to the website, my cell phone's on there too. I've always tried to stay pretty easy to get a hold of. And, I was just showing some friends though yesterday, my emails, at 123,000 missed. So emails not necessarily the perfect way. I would prefer you call me. And if you call me, I will always call you back within 24 hours, guaranteed. That's also another, life lesson that actually Tom Barrick, who ran the inaugural committee, billionaire from California. I don't remember exactly what his business was. But super disciplined guy, super amazing guy. And his number one rule was just, you'll always be successful as long as you make sure you call someone back that same day.
Absolutely.
And I've lived by that since I met him, and he's totally right. It's just that those little small things that you can make a part of your life truly make the difference.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Eric, I really appreciate the conversation today. It's been a great insight, very learning.
Yes.
What were some takeaways that you had, Paul?
Well, build that relationship. That's where it's at, and influencing people. And you've done a lot of that, Eric. And I do appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, I've got a number of things written down. I love it. Never burn bridges. Don't make enemies, because you never know when it's going to be there. Play the long term. life is about problem solving skills, how you deal with it, how you respond, and how you fix it. I think that's fantastic. And work on balance every day. You gotta have that health in mind. You gotta have the family in mind. You gotta have the business in mind every single day. And it takes discipline, that's for sure.
Sure does.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to our achiever for joining us today. Keep up the great work. And thank you again, Eric, for joining us. And have a great week. We'll see you next week.